B16, be black and have family down in Alabama. They farm and own a huge amount of land down in Huntsville. Uncle owns a big house and a bunch of trailers they put in the woods for hunting and camping. Down south cousins suggest that we go out there to camp. Know I'm a city kid from Chicago, so they tease the fuck out of me. Collect food, kill a pig and some chickens, and bring the necessities to camp out for a few days. We get to the camp and it's obvious something is weird. Air has this weird electric smell like right before a storm, like ozone. We think nothing of it and unpack and go down to a little creek to swim for a few hours. All of a sudden, some older white guy and a white teenager come out of the bushes. He has a shotgun in the crook of his arm and says hello, asks us what we're doing so far back in the woods, tell him about my uncle, who he knows, and says we're camping out. He tells us we need to be real careful out there and stick together because there was a big animal in the woods. His son, who is my age, asks if he can stay and hang out with us. He says okay. Alright, I'm gonna stop green texting because the story is fairly long and the format is hard to write in. So we end up playing football, dicking around with me, the white kid Tanner, 5 of my cousins, and then 4 of their friends in total. There were 5 girls and 6 boys. We were around 15 to 17, and we ended up just dicking the day away. Eventually we head back to the camp and pull out some stuff for a campfire, even though the trailers both had kitchenettes. Tanner says that his family property is right by my uncle's and he wants to run and ask his father if he can go camping with us. My cousin Rooster says he's going to go with him since it's going to get dark soon. One of the girls goes to tag along. It's about 7 o'clock and it's starting to get pretty dark. They grab flashlights and take the trail towards Tan's property. The rest of us are chill, we make s'mores, drink, and kiss on the girls. About 30 or 40 minutes later, there's this smell of ozone again. You could notice it over the scent of the fire we had started. This really nasty, coppery smell. Like right after you had a nosebleed and it stopped. It wasn't exactly like dried blood, but it was metallic, back of your throat smell. We immediately think that it's some kind of electrical malfunction or that someone left a hot plate on or something. We search the trailers and there's nothing on, but we can all smell it. All of a sudden, we can hear people booking it down the path towards us. Rooster, Tan, and the girl all come running into the clearing out of breath and they don't break stride. They all run into the trailer right by where the fire is. We all get the fuck out of there and into the trailer. They end up calming down. Even Rooster is crying his fucking eyes out at this point. All the while, the fire is getting lower and lower, and my cousins say, fuck it, we're going to go outside and get the generator. But Tanner says, fuck no, lock the front door, ain't nobody else going outside. He's been crying too, his eyes are bloodshot and puffy, and his pants are dirty as shit. He goes on to tell us that they went back to the house. His father said sure, he could go out camping, but to make sure they were careful on the way back, and that maybe they should take one of the hunting rifles just in case. Evidently, Tanner had seen something in their yard a few days before. One of their pigs had been ripped up and half-eaten. They assumed it was just a big cat or some coyotes, even though they don't usually fuck with live animals. Tanner went upstairs, packed his stuff, and told his dad he would be okay without the rifle because coyotes avoid people. Then they started walking back towards where they were camping. Rooster finally stops crying and shaking. The girl already had, but now is just staring out the window with a dumb look on her face. He says they had gone halfway into the woods towards the camp when they started to hear shit in the forest. It was almost pitch black by this time, so they weren't sure at first what the fuck it was. The girl says she heard something in the bushes right off to the trail. They all beamed their flashlights over there and there was someone standing in the woods in a little hollow. Rooster said they shouted at him and that they said he was scaring the fuck out of them and what a dick he was, but they realized that the guy was facing away from him. They kept walking and they started smelling this nasty, coppery ozone smell. They said they look off into the forest on the opposite side and there's a dude standing there too, backwards, slightly closer to the path. So now they start power walking and Tan keeps going, I should have taken the fucking rifle as they're telling the story. So the smell in the air is super strong, even inside the cabin. They say that after they started walking faster, a kind of low gibbering had been coming from the sides of the woods. As they booked it back to the trailer, the girl said she flashed her light out and saw something jerking itself through the woods. The gibbering got louder and louder. When they could see the light from our campfire, something had come out of the woods about 40 yards behind them onto the track. They just flat out ran as hard as they could to the trailer. So we're out in the fucking woods. We're assuming at this point some rednecks or some shit trying to fuck with us. All of a sudden, my other cousin Junior starts going on about how he went to school with a Native American kid that was telling him about the Goatman or some shit. We probably tell him to shut the fuck up because we don't need spooky talk right now. But he keeps going on and on about how it's the fucking Goatman and we're in his woods and blah blah blah. Now, at the time, I had never heard of the Goatman or anything, but a couple years ago, the year before I graduated college, I had a menon for a roommate, and I ended up asking him about it, and to sum it up, it's basically a man with a goat head, and he can shapeshift to get among groups and terrorize them. It's supposed to be some kind of Wendigo. It's bad mojo to even talk about it, and worse if you see it. Keep in mind, I didn't know this back when I was 16, so my cousin is going, "The Goatman's going to get in and fucking get us." The girls are all terrified, and my cousins and I are all fucking trying to figure out if it's just some hillbillies or an animal. All of a sudden, the smell just goes away. To this day, I've never experienced anything like it. Obviously, smell usually fades or lessens, but it literally was there 1 second, and the next it was gone. So it's after an hour, making it around 9 or 10, we stop shitting bricks enough to go back outside and stoke the fire again. We figure it was just some asshole fucking with us, so we don't go back home because we think if we do, they'll chase us through the woods or some shit. Nothing else weird happens. We stay another night, and for the main part, nothing happens, but it's about 1 in the morning. We're outside getting drunk and telling ghost stories as someone is finishing some too spooky story. I don't remember what about. The smell comes back. It's so fucking strong that one of the girls starts vomiting. I stand up and you can actually feel how clammy the air is. I said, we should have gone back inside, that this isn't right. We should have just left. We all go in and we're standing around. My cousins keep going on about how it's the goddamn Goatman. My other cousin Rooster tries to shut him up, but all the while I'm feeling like something is wrong. I can't figure out what it is. We end up sitting in the cabin for a while. The smell is just as strong and we're terrified, huddled in this camper. We end up cooking brats for everyone because nobody wants to go outside. It's one of those packs with 4 brats. I grill them up on the stove, give everyone one, and I get mine. After a while, one of my cousins gets up and goes over to the pot to get another one. He starts grumbling about how I got 2 brats and everybody else got 1. I look at him like he's fucking stupid and I tell him, everybody got 1 because there were only 12 brats, and if he wanted more, he should open up a new pack and cook some more. That's when the girl that had been out with Rooster and Tan just starts screaming, "Jesus, Lord, get it out!" She's crying and shivering, then it dawns on the cousin standing up, what is wrong? Me and him both glance around the room, and I feel my heart sink. I run the fuck out of the cabin, and the girl runs out with us, the trailer doors banging on its side, and everyone books it out. One of my friends asks us what is wrong. I start counting. There's only 11 now. I shit you not, my cousin verified. There had been 12 people in the cabin, but being that everybody didn't really know each other well enough, nobody noticed there was an extra person. And then I realized noticed something was off. You know how you get a certain kick in the dick feeling when you're just trying not to sweat the small stuff, but you just know something's wrong. I'm dead sure that someone else had been in the trailer with us, and that they had been with us for an entire fucking day, eating with us. What makes it worse is that I couldn't figure out who it was, because I don't know anyone ever actually interacted with the other person. The girl kept praying to Jesus, and we're all sitting outside. Eventually we get big ass sticks and go back in the cabin, but no one's there. We count again. 11 people. We go back into the trailer, lock the door, we explain what the fuck happened. The girl says that she realized too, that when she was about to say something, the person sitting next to her grabbed her leg hard and leaned over toward her, said something she couldn't understand. So we're scared the fuck out of our minds. We huddle up and we fall asleep. When I wake up, the sun is just coming up and half the people are asleep. The other half are packing our shit up. We all want to walk back home, but like 4 wants to stay until the sun is all the way up. And some people think that we're just fucking around and still want to stay at the trailers. I just want to go and get the fuck out of these woods, man. The girl's name was Kiara, the one the Goatman touched. I asked her if she really thinks it was something bad, and she says she doesn't care. She just wants to go home. She doesn't want to be in the woods for another night. So we split up. The four that want to go can go, but I have to stay because I have the keys to the cabin, and it is my uncle's after all. I'm fucking pissed at this point because it feels like no one's taking this seriously. I just want to get out of the woods. I'm not going to stay here for another night. And I tried to convince the rest to come with me, but they just were not fucking convinced. There's 4 guys and 4 girls, and none of them want to get the fuck out of Dodge. Tanner leaves to go with them to get a rifle, and he says he's going to be back, so there's 7 of us left by 4 p.m. At around 5 p.m. he hasn't made it back yet, and we're getting extremely antsy. The only reason I stopped begging them to leave was because he went to go get a gun. At about 5:30 or so, the cousin that did stay says that the girl Kiara is outside. We all look outside, and sure enough, she's standing by the fire pit with her back to the cabin. I'm thinking to myself, if she was so scared, why would she come back? And then I get this nasty feeling in my gut. The coppery smell had been gone, but now I can smell it. I say this to the rest of them, everybody, and these are the people that wanted to stay in the woods, are laughing at me. They think I set this up to scare them, and I'm looking at them like, why would I do this? Why would I play a prank like that? So one of the girls goes outside to get Kiara. She gets halfway to her and stops cold. Kiara starts heaving. I don't know how to describe it. Just someone turned their back, laughing without actually making any sound. It was this fact that made me realize there's not a sound in the woods. It was dead silent. This was late September, so it is still fairly hot out at the time, but super chilly some days too. You could usually hear some big-ass geese honking, or some kind of bird or squirrel chit-chatting. I step out the door and tell the girl to get back to the trailer right now. She steps back into the cabin, and we lock the door. We pull down the shades except one and put a guy there in a chair to watch Kiara. She stands there for another 20 minutes or so. Eventually the guy turns to say that she's still there, and there's this huge bang on the door. We all jump the fuck up and scramble around the living room. The bang is super loud. My cousin is holding one of the girls. The other 2 are giggling with nervous laughter, and me and the other 2 guys are shitting bricks. Then we hear Tan screaming, "Let me the fuck in! Stop playing!" We go over the door and we open it. He stumbles in with a rifle and nobody else outside. Evidently, he had walked up to the campsite. Nothing weird happened in the forest, but he'd seen a girl. Mind you, he said it was not Kiara standing there. When he had gotten to the edge of the clearing, she had turned toward him, slack-jawed, looked at him and stared him down, slowly tracking him as he walked outside, clearing towards the camp. He said it wasn't till about halfway to the trailer that he'd realized she was getting close to him. She had started off by the fire, and without him even seeing her move, she had been turning, inching closer. He said he just ran the rest of the way to the cabin, thinking it would open. When he got to the door, it was locked. He turned and it was about half the distance to the door. He looks around and then he gets super pale. He pulls me to the side, whispers to my ear, "You know there are only 7 of us here, right?" I get that feeling where your stomach drops to your nuts. It had been back inside the trailer while we're sorting out what was going on. Then we went outside to talk earlier in the day. It just slipped in. We look out the window and there's nobody there, so we recount. Then I go over and ask everyone how many people were in here earlier. Everyone says 8. Well, how many are here now? They all do the count and realize there's only 7 people in the cabin. Tan had brought back a couple boxes of ammo in his rifle. He told his dad that there was some kind of animal in the forest because he didn't think he would believe him about some Goatman. He says his cousin is supposed to be coming down in a few hours, that in the morning we can all go back to his place and his cousin will drive us home. Now I'm really fucking scared, but I feel a bit better because we can be American and shoot the fuck out of whatever it is that comes at us. But then my cousin gets into this huge argument with one of the girls because she thinks I'm trying to be funny and prank them. She's getting scared and thinking it's not funny. He keeps telling her I'm not that kind of person, and she says, well, how do we know the girl outside wasn't just Tanner in a wig? Or if it's really Goatman, how do we know that that's the real Tanner and that Goatman didn't just kill him and take his gun? We get into a huge argument about this where me and Tanner are like, we could seriously be in danger because at the very least, someone has been sneaking into our trailer without us knowing, mingling with us, and at worst, something bad is in the forest with us. One of the girls is crying, saying she wants to go right now, and we're telling her that's a terrible idea because none of us are walking through the woods in the middle of the night. At this point, the sun is starting to go down. It's getting a little cloudy out. We eat something and turn on the radio for a while, but we can't really get a station that's any decent, so we turn it off. And that's about the time Tim's cousin shows up. He was like 19. Now the sun is barely over the horizon when he's got one of those heavy-duty flashlights and another rifle. He walks up to the trailer and whispers to Tan, asking if he's sure that's his cousin. He says yes. The guy looks behind him, around the camp, and then walks in. He glances at us and looks a bit confused. Then he says, where's your little buddy at? I figured she would have met up at the cabin. Is she a little slow or something? He also asked whether we'd been cooking blood in the cabin because it smelled like blood in hot pans all the way up to the trail. We are all like, nope. We ask him what the fuck he's talking about with the girl he saw. He had come down the same trail Tan had, using and found one of you guys as buddies, standing in the middle of the trail looking at him slack-jawed. He had asked him a bunch of questions, but all she did was look at him. Then she smiled, and he kept walking. She couldn't even keep up with him, and kept lagging a bit behind. He said he asked if she was hurt or something, if she needed any help, but she continued to stare. Eventually, he turned around a bend in the trail, but when he went back to see if she was okay, the trail was empty. He assumed she took a shortcut to the trailer. We tell him the story about what's going on. I expected him to say we're full of shit, but he just listened and sat down on the couches in the living room. So he gets back to the girl. He says when she kept trying to lag behind him, it was kind of weirding him out. So he tried to keep her in front of him, but no matter how slow he walked, she was always lagging behind. He smelled this nasty smell, and it kept getting stronger as he got closer to the camp. Eventually, it got really strong. She said something really low that he didn't catch, and when he turned around, she had been right there in front of him. He stepped back from her. It was this point he asked if she was okay. If she wasn't, he offered to carry her on his back the rest of the way. She just kept staring. He reached out to grab her, but he must have misjudged the distance because she was off to the side where he had put his hand, like she had moved while he was looking dead at her. So at this point, we know this shit's real, unless Tan is playing a joke, which we can tell he's not because he's practically pissing his pants. They load the rifles, we eat some more, and we just sit around until about 11. To this day, every time I think about this, I pray to God it was some huge prank my cousins played, and it was just never revealed to me. At around 11, the stink of copper turned into an actual gross blood-like smell, like cooked blood and singed hair. Tan and his cousin Reese get the fuck up instantly and grab the rifles. There's like a half knocking, half clawing at the door, and I shit you not, there's this voice. It sounds like when a cat or dog tries to speak. It says in this halting, weirdly toned voice, "Let me in. Stop fucking playing." It made my nuts creep up against my body, and one of the girls starts crying and calling for Jesus. It was obviously not a person talking. It didn't have the right cadence when they talk, no matter what language. All people have a certain rhythm when talking. The shit didn't have cadence or rhythm. It sounded like an animal talking. Like, it's just repeating what it's heard. So now I'm in full terror mode. We keep yelling outside, "Who is it? Stop messing around, man." It just keeps saying, "In," or "Let me in," for almost 15 minutes. Then the smell goes away for a while. In the next hour or so, you can hear someone basically creeping around the woods. Every couple of minutes, it comes back to the door to say something. Finally, the smell fades away at 2 in the morning. Reese says, "Man, fuck this." Opens the door, walks outside with his rifle. He fires a shot in the air and says something to the effect of, "In the name of Jesus Christ, go away." He fires 2 more times, then from the woods, right up against the river from the trailer, it sounds like something is slowly gibbering and hooting. Then it starts screaming. It sounds like a woman and a cat in a bag screaming together. In all seriousness, I have never heard anything like it in my life. We can hear the brush that starts to shake. Reese fires over the tree line, then he starts backing up into the cabin. We lock the door and we can hear this shit keening and screaming. Reese says something had come out of the bushes super low to the ground and was crawling towards the cabin. He had shot at it. Pretty much that was how the rest of the night went. Constant screaming for the next 2 hours. Shit moving in the tree line, but it never came back up to the cabin until everyone had fallen asleep. Tan had been sitting up in a chair watching the door with his rifle. Nobody else heard or saw this, and he told me 2 days later after the whole thing was over. He said he had been nodding off after the screaming and the noises finally stopped. He'd been almost asleep when he saw someone come out of the bathroom and then lay down in the middle of the floor and go to sleep. He just assumed it was one of us and that the guy had nodded off. Then he realized something wrong. He didn't want to try and shoot at the thing and have it kill us all there and then, or, scare Reese and have him start shooting. So he just stayed awake all night, pretending to be asleep. Sometimes it would stand up and kind of do this weird jittery thing or heave like it was laughing, but then it would lay back down. The story closes pretty weak because from my perspective, nothing happened. We woke up, noticed that Tan was a little jittery and a little pale, and that he was avoiding looking at all of us. We ate breakfast, packed up, and started walking to his house. He stayed last in the cabin and said he'd lock up. He promised to bring me my uncle's keys. He told us to start walking and that he'd catch up, which I didn't really want to do. We just got a bit up the path, and when he came running up, we just jogged back to his house. His cousin took us home. There was a window in the bathroom. Tan had gone back to lock up and looked in there. We were too stupid to lock a screenless window, and it was up when he went in there. I'm guessing it'd been doing that all along, waiting for us to fall asleep or slip up and then get among us. It walked with us to the house. Then he said it lagged behind the group, looked him dead in the eyes before walking into the woods.